Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we are going to go over something I think is a little bit interesting, and it came across in a couple of sessions recently, and it's actually the concept of distance in relationships. Now, a perception that I've noticed is some anxious, preoccupied folks perceive something is labeled as distance, whereas the dismissive avoidant or fearful leaning dismissive perceives it more as connection or safety or calm type of relationship, whereas the anxious, preoccupied, or fearful leaning anxious might perceive it as distance. And so what I have noticed is this concept of distance is actually where a lot of avoidants bond. And I didn't even realize that some people perceive this as distance, but it is. And that's kind of something that I've been learning recently. So what do I mean by this concept of distance? So I want to first clarify what I don't mean, and then I'm going to talk about what it is so that you guys can use this concept to get closer to an avoidant partner, okay? Hope that makes sense. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. So what do I not mean by distance in this particular instance? How can we talk about what not to do or what is not what I'm talking about, okay? I don't mean tolerating long stretches of time without communication, without any improvement at all towards connecting to each other. I'm not saying go like 3 months without texting and just check in every now and again. That is not what I mean by distance by any means, okay? The next one is I don't mean going no contact mainly for the hopes that they will chase you. I don't mean that either. A lot of you guys who watch my channel, which is the majority of you guys watch most of my videos daily, which I appreciate, by the way. I really appreciate you guys. And you help me to learn things. Reading your comments, I learned so much about relationships. So thank you so much. But a lot of you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of no contact in order to create a healthy relationship. There's a lot of research that shows that's not the truth, right? I've told you guys there's some research that most people who get divorced, they get remarried to someone who is not their ex. And so it doesn't work that way. I understand marriage is a different concept, but I still can kind of translate it that way. I'm not a fan of no contact. And when I mean distance, I don't mean going no contact in hopes that they will chase you. While that may help, I don't feel like that'll sustain a healthy relationship in the long run. If that is absolutely something you feel like that is the only choice you have, I get that. But I just don't feel like if you have to go that measure and that stretch, that relationship in of itself doesn't have much of a leg to stand on. I could be wrong. I really could be wrong, because you got to understand I'm also a therapist, so I see more long-term relationships, and so I might not have much information about that. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, but especially things like that. And the next thing I don't mean by distance is detaching or pulling away to see if they chase you. That's not what I mean by distance. So then what do I mean? Okay. What I actually mean is a perception of distance from an emotional standpoint. One of the most common conflicts, as I was saying in the beginning of this video, in couples therapy between either dismissive and fearful, or a dismissive and anxious preoccupied, or fearful and anxious if it's the fearful leaning dismissive. You guys get what I mean, I hope. What I notice is their lack of emotional perspectives towards this concept, okay? So let's say there's a lack of emotional talks, expressions, or solidified conversations about the future. The anxious or fearful leaning anxious perceives this as distance in the relationship. What's going on in their head? What are they thinking about? Why does it feel so distant between us? Whereas the dismissive avoidant or fearful leaning dismissive is thinking, wow, this is so peaceful. I feel so happy. I really am grateful for this relationship. And it is so interesting because I literally had like 2 couples this morning have this exact concept, which is so interesting because the dismissive avoidant is literally like saying, I'm so happy. I'm really excited. I hope the ball doesn't drop and everything is going to get chaotic again, but this is awesome. And the other partner is thinking, we're barely talking. We're not having any of our detailed conversations. Like, I feel so empty. I feel so far from you. And it's literally like it's almost like they're talking about 2 different relationships, but it's the same relationship. One person is like, oh my God, this is the best time of our life. And the other one is feeling like so empty and so scared for the future of the relationship. And it is literally in the session. Like, they're talking to me in front of each other. It's a very interesting dynamic. But what it's interesting is they both cannot see or hear how the other person is perceiving the exact same relationship that they are in. And this got me kind of realizing how often that some people might think distance is a bad thing, this concept of distance that we're talking about, when it's actually probably the key to keeping avoidance feeling more safe in the relationship. However, I don't want you guys to put too much distance because you guys deserve that love and attention as well, which is why meeting in the middle is the best option. So I'm going to give you an example of what this kind of looks like and then what we can do to meet the two halves sides together. Okay. So let's say we have a dismissive avoidant male and a fearful avoidant female. Let's say they're a married couple. Okay. And she feels like they haven't had much deep talks and they've been going with the flow and they're not talking much about the future and their dates are very, they don't talk much. There's eating. Maybe they're just saying very like lighthearted jokes. They're not talking about very deep things. She feels like it's kind of like they're just strangers or they're just dating again. They are distant, right? She feels nervous and feels disconnected. He feels like it's peaceful. He feels like his wife is happy because she's not saying anything. He feels like his day-to-day is amazing. He's so grateful that he has this peace in his life, right? Because as we've talked about on my channel before, dismissive avoidance and fearful leaning dismissive, but especially dismissive avoidance, they perceive the happiest relationships as if something that's just there in their life, right? Their comfort, just like that reliable car, that reliable, the reliable amount of money in their bank, right? They have that interesting relationship with money. That's how they feel about relationships, that reliable, safe thing that's just always with me, I'm not saying you're a thing, just that's how they feel. A reliable person I can always have, that's always going to be there. That's what they perceive as love. Whereas the other person might feel like we're not talking, we're not getting to know each other. You don't know my day to day. You don't know how I'm feeling. And she feels like he's very surface level and very distant. And he feels like they're bonding to this very deep connection. So that's the difference. So then what do we do to meet the two worlds? Okay. The very first one is for both of you guys to take time to enjoy the day-to-day interactions and not worry too much about the future, because that day-to-day interaction builds the future. If you guys are having multiple day-to-day interactions that are happy every day for like months on end, likely the marriage or the relationship is probably going to be overall fine, right? That's something that we've seen. The next thing that you can do, however, is enjoy some side-by-side interactions, such as cooking together, taking a walk together, cuddling even while watching TV, things like that, while having a little bit more of those deep or emotional talks, okay? The reason why is because it's still not 100% emotionally overwhelming, but you're still having those emotional talks. Now, in order to introduce those emotional talks, what I'd like is the next step for you guys, only if you guys want, right? I'm not telling you what to do, just sharing information, is you can introduce deeper talks and more emotional spaces at a lower frequency, possibly with a time limit. I'm not saying like literally put a timer, but just kind of think, I don't want to make this too long-winded, okay? You want to have it a little bit more of a lower frequency and a little bit less often originally, right? And then as time goes on, what I want you to do is introduce more flexibility without these restrictions and kind of add those emotional concepts and keys to the relationship while still continuously doing those day-to-day interactions or having side-by-side interactions or routine-based interactions, okay? Those routines might even be making a cup of coffee for your partner every day, them filling the gas in your car, routines. Avoidants really like routines. It makes them feel very safe. And then you can have some of those emotional talks throughout, breaking up the routine just a little bit every now and again. And then you can increase that as time goes on. And so that's how you can use distance, what we are calling distance in this video, to bond with your partner. I understand this video was kind of a lot, but I'm going to summarize the quick points of how you can use distance to bond with your partner, and then we'll wrap it up, okay? The first one is take time to enjoy the day-to-day interactions, okay? The next one is spend more time with side-to-side interactions, such as cooking together, taking walks, cuddling, watching TV. The third one is you can use those side-by-side interactions to slowly introduce deeper talks. The next one is to have any sort of routine-based activities together, whatever you guys do, even separately, but towards the relationship. So maybe every Sunday you guys go to the gym together. Maybe every morning you make coffee, every night they cook dinner. Whatever it is, some sort of thing that keeps the relationship functioning. The next one is introduce deeper talks in lower frequency, possibly with time limit. And the last one is, as time goes on, introduce more flexibility with those deep talks with less or no restrictions, okay? I hope this video was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.